Hello, everybody. Today we need to talk about nuclear energy in the United States. I do think that it is going to take on a whole new trajectory, but first we have to look at what is happening today. So the current administration is pretty pro-nuclear. They want to triple nuclear capacity by 2050, which is an absolute great goal. And let's hope that the Trump administration will keep this goal alive and pursue it further. But what's also interesting is that the current administration is really trying to help new vendors, new ideas, new nuclear reactors to come to the state. Now, first, I have to preface this with the fact that I like any machine that uses neutrons to split atoms to create energy. Doesn't matter to me whether these are large pressurized water reactors or small molten salt reactors or anything in between. I like them lead cooled, I like them gas cooled, I like them molten salt cooled. So yeah, there's that. And if you ask me, are large reactors here to stay? Yes, the next coming 20, 30, 40 years, we still need to build at least 50, maybe even 100 large reactors in order to make sure that we can power our civilization. And mind you, it's only going to be a portion of our civilization. The magnitude of our problem, the magnitude of our challenge is so much bigger that light water reactors, large AP1000s, simply cannot carry all the load. It's simply impossible. Yes, let's start building 10 AP1000s next year, and let's start building 10 AP1000s the year after that, and stack them up that we have, 40 or 50 AP1000s under construction by the year 2030. If anybody can match that ambition, which I am announcing now, then I would say, okay, sure, you can grill me over my fixation on molten salt reactors, but unless you are willing to say that we need to do at least double what I'm suggesting, or look at the reality and see what we're actually going to do. I mean, it would be great if we would be building 4 or 6 AP1000s by 2030. I don't even think that that is going to happen. Maybe it is going to happen. I hope it's going to happen. But we really need more. We need more options. And in the light water sphere, I mean, it's also not a very broad market. It's not like it's a buyer's market, right? It's a seller's market. There's only 3 viable light water reactors on offer today. It's the EPR, it's the AP1000, and it's the APR 1400. With some smaller derivatives, the APR 1000. I mean, also the Russian ones, the VVER TOY and the VVER 1200. The Chinese ones, the Yuelong 1 and the CAP 1400, right? Then there's Japan, Mitsubishi, and Toshiba are also developing new light water reactors. Great. It's all fantastic. I really hope that this starts to move towards becoming a buyer's market rather than becoming a seller's market. Everybody is just looking around and saying, "Oh well, I've got my market. I've got my razor blade business up and going. I don't need to build many more of these reactors because the risks and everything." And forget about it. So the molten salt reactor. Why am I so hawkish on the molten salt reactor? So over here, this is the molten salt reactor as it is being developed by Terrestrial Energy. I don't know if this is the latest one. Unfortunately, it's a pretty dark picture, so I wish it was lighter. But down here below, so first of all, the principles of the molten salt reactors, in case you don't know. So in a light water reactor, what you have is you have solid fuel pellets. And these solid fuel pellets are installed in these long tubes, and these long tubes are installed in what is called fuel assemblies. And these fuel assemblies are then lowered into the reactor. These fuel assemblies are submerged in water, and there is control rods in between these fuel assemblies. So once you lift the control rods, you make sure that the chemistry of the water is such that there's no unnecessary eating of neutrons, which happens when you add boric acid to the water. You take the boric acid out, you lift the control rods. What happens is you always have some spontaneous fissions of uranium-235 atoms, which gives you neutrons. These neutrons have to be slowed down, which happens in the water. And once these neutrons reach another uranium-235 atom, then it will split and will release more neutrons. And that's how you get this self-sustaining chain reaction. Now, in a molten salt reactor, what happens is you turn this paradigm on its head. Instead of having a solid fuel, what you have is a liquid fuel, and you have a solid moderator. So you have in a light water reactor, your water, your light water, is the moderator, and in the molten salt reactor, graphite, solid graphite, is your moderator. The fuel, the uranium, the low enriched uranium, is dissolved in a salt, molten salt. This salt has a melting point that is a couple hundred degrees centigrade. And it has a boiling point that is way, 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 way above that. So it's actually a point that you cannot physically reach inside one of these molten salt reactors, at least not as far as I know. Now, the reason why this is interesting, having this liquid fuel instead of having the solid fuel, is that you can move it around quite easily. So you can move the heat around, but you can also easily reprocess it, get some fission products out if you want to, add some new fuel if you need to. I mean, it offers a lot of versatility that solid fuel simply doesn't have. Now, if we look at this reactor, so we're talking about this graphite core. The graphite core is down here. Unfortunately, it's entirely dark, so it's hard to see. Then over here, above here, what you have these silver colored things. Those are the heat exchangers. So what happens is, inside this core, you have these nuclear reactions. Heat is added to the fuel salt thanks to these reactions. And then you get this natural convective force. So this salt starts moving upward and it goes through these heat exchangers. And while it is giving off its heat to the secondary salt, which is inside these heat exchangers and then goes out towards a secondary heat exchanger, the salt cools down again and then it flows down at the side of the reactor core, comes down back here below the core, and then gets drawn up again because of this natural convective force. So this is basically what a molten salt reactor looks like. It's a pretty simple. I would say it looks pretty simple, right? And the reason why I think this is an awesome idea is because it can be manufactured quite quickly. The reactor pressure vessel, when we're talking about light water reactor, has to be like 20 or 25 centimeters thick because it has to combat all this pressure buildup in this in this water, this heat. It's an incompressible fluid, so pressure builds up and builds up and builds up. It wants to turn to steam because the temperature is way beyond 100 degrees centigrade, but it can't because there's no place where it can go. So instead, what it has to do is it gets forced into a loop. And in this loop, you have a steam generator. And there, all this heated water gets pushed into pipes. And these pipes are then surrounded by water again. And this water can turn to steam. So that's how that works. But there's loads and loads and loads of pressure there. And the pressure never really lets off. There's just, changes in temperature and that's it. Inside this molten salt reactor, the operating pressure inside this molten salt reactor is near atmospheric. So it doesn't need to combat all these strains. It doesn't have to combat, this force that the water is pushing outward. Molten salt doesn't do that. So you don't have to build a thick-walled reactor vessel. And that's I think, a key benefit of molten salt reactors, because this means that you can actually manufacture these. And maybe you can even manufacture one a day. This means that if you are able to build a power plant that can hold these cans and that can use whatever comes out of it, the heat, in the form of this secondary salt. So this is what a power plant would look like. Not really a power plant. This is what the nuclear island would look like in one of these molten salt reactor power plants. So you have this silo in which you then lower this molten salt reactor. I wish that the colors were actually real. Unfortunately, it's just going to be boring. If you would cut it open, it would look like water would be coursing through it, because a molten salt really looks a lot like water. There's nothing special. There may be some color hint in there, but not much. So in any case, what you see over here, so you have two reactors, one reactor over here, one reactor over here. And this over here is probably equipment meant to add fuel to the mixture or to pump things over, because that's a possibility. You can pump the salt out and put it into a different container if you want to. And over here you have stored reactor vessels, because these reactor vessels, they only get used for somewhere between 7 or 8 years. That's one of the drawbacks of using a graphite core, is that unfortunately you can't use one of those cores indefinitely. Just look at the problems that the English nuclear reactors have at this moment, the advanced gas cooled reactors. They have some issues with their graphite moderators as well. So this is a schematic view of what a molten salt reactor does, right? You've got the reactions going on inside the core, heating up the salt. The salt, through convective force, moves upwards through these heat exchangers, heating up the secondary salt and cooling itself down. So the primary salt then moves down again and goes back into the graphite core. And in the meanwhile, what happens is this secondary salt gets moved into a secondary heat exchanger. And from there, it can basically be used for anything. It can be used to repower a coal plant. It can be used to power just any old steam turbine system. Can also be used to put into a solar storage loop. You have these solar salts. You can put them in large vats and basically store loads and loads of heat. And you could use this heat in to run an industrial process. And I think that this is one of the most important and most interesting aspects of these molten salt reactors, and that's the high heat, the 585 degrees centigrade of actual high heat that you can use for any industrial process. So let's get to the news, because this is already old news. It's from December 4th this year, but it's really interesting, and I want to read it to you in order to make sure that we got the full picture. So Terrestrial Energy, a developer of small modular nuclear power plants utilizing advanced reactor technology, and Energy Solutions, a leading supplier of environmental remediation services to the nuclear energy industry and owner of brownfield sites for new nuclear development or deployment, have entered into a memorandum of understanding to collaborate on the siting and deployment of integral molten salt reactor plants at Energy Solution owned sites. So this looks to become their first paying customer, Energy Solutions. And it's a really great customer, because they are in the nuclear business and they really know what they're talking about, And they apparently they need a lot of electricity and they need a lot of heat. So that's why they're talking to Terrestrial Energy. Energy Solutions is a market-leading supplier of nuclear decommissioning and decontamination, waste processing, and disposal services in the United States and Canada. Let's pause here for a second. Waste processing and disposal services, decommissioning and decontamination, waste processing. Waste processing takes a lot of heat, probably. So that's why a molten salt reactor that gives you a lot of heat is probably a good partner. In June 2023, Energy Solutions announced a study of former nuclear sites acquired by the company to determine potential locations for new nuclear generation. Terrestrial Energy and Energy Solutions have assessed these sites in North America as potential locations for IMSR plants to benefit from accelerated deployment schedules. This year, we have observed a rapid increase in anticipated demand growth for clean, firm heat and power driven by significant load growth from key factors, such as data centers supporting AI operations and industrials seeking distributed clean energy solutions to achieve their strategic goals. Terrestrial Energy's IMSR plant is uniquely positioned to meet this growing demand at a time when small and modular nuclear power plants leveraging advanced reactor technologies are now in the spotlight as high-performance and transformative supply solutions. If we look at it from a critical perspective, I don't want to throw shade on light water reactors or large water reactors. I don't care. I need to repeat this because otherwise people might misunderstand me. Can we start building 10 of those this year and 10 of those next year and 10 of those the year after that? Please? And if I'm not clear enough, please understand that the magnitude of the problem, we're not just talking about electricity, we're talking about energy. Electricity is only like, somewhere around 10% of all primary energy that is consumed today. Chris Wright, the person who is pegged for Department of Energy in the United States in the Trump administration, the new Trump administration, he is very clear on this. He talks about primary energy, not like Michael Liebreich, the person who likes to talk about end use. End use is fine, of course. End use is all we do in the end. Primary is what you need to put into the entire system in order to make it sustainable, in order to sustain humanity, civilization. And if you really want to make a dent in primary use, if you want to reduce the amount of fossil fuels, if you want to reduce the amount of air pollution, I'm not talking about CO2. I don't think that CO2 is air pollution, but the particulate matter, the really small stuff, the PM 2.5, that's air pollution. If you want to reduce that as much as possible, then AP1000s are simply not going to cut it. We need something much more versatile, much more quicker, much more with a higher heat content. And that's why I am hawkish about the molten salt reactor. Now, this is the way that Terrestrial Energy is basically marketing their product. So Generation 4 IMSR fission technology, a perfect fit for repowering coal, I agree. Can data centers take control of clean energy? And this is the way they are marketing it. And it's a smart strategy because these are real and tangible things that we need to start doing in the near future. Generation 4 fission technology changes equation on green hydrogen production. If you have high heat, then producing hydrogen becomes easier. Just splitting it with electricity is hard. You want to have high heat. That makes it easier. New animation shows how IMSR cogeneration plants supply the missing piece for net zero goals with clean energy for industry. It's not bad marketing. I like how they outline it, right? So over here you have your 2 reactors. This is probably your generator. There's a generator over here. Then over here you have your salt storage. It's all smart. It looks pretty good, but really we need to start building these as fast as possible, and that's why I am happy with this memorandum of understanding. That's why I am happy that it looks like Terrestrial Energy has finally found a paying customer to take their, right? They're basically tearing down nuclear reactors. They're working on Fort Calhoun, Song, Susan, and Offray nuclear generating station, Kewaunee, TMI-2, which is going to be restarted, fortunately, and even NS Savannah. So these are not small projects. So let's take a look on the map. So I already zoomed into to Songs. This is the map of the United States. Here are all the activities by New Energy Solutions. Let me see. Energy Solutions, I have to call them. Energy Solutions. So first I'm going to look at Songs, right? The San Onofre nuclear generating station. Unfortunately, its life cut short well before its prime, unfortunately. So as you can see, the turbine buildings have already been completely taken apart. And they're taking apart everything else that there's there. Over here, this is the place where they have the spent nuclear fuel stored. I believe that this is spent nuclear fuel storage as well. This is a really sad place. This reactor, these 2 reactors should still be operational today. Do I believe that this is a candidate for IMSR development? I don't know. I don't think so. Not yet. Maybe once they have fully deconstructed the nuclear island, maybe then it will become a suitable candidate. Would I be looking for more locations in California to deploy these? Absolutely. San Francisco area, especially to desalinate water and to provide electricity. If you would build 3 or 4 of these IMSR plants, I bet you could have maybe even 3/4 of the entire Bay Area and provide drinking water for all of these people that live here. Their water problems would become a thing of the past. I believe, you have the Hatch Hatchy water system. I don't believe that I know exactly where everything is where everything is at, but the Hatch Hatchy water system basically starts over here in the Sierra Nevada. Gathering water in lakes and then pumping it towards San Jose and San Francisco and over here Oakland, in order to make sure that all these people have water. So that's a really interesting business case. But we're here to see what Energy Solutions is doing. So over here they have a waste treatment site. You see over here these large banks. I believe that contains activated waste, low level, activated waste. That's what they put there. Would this be a good place for an IMSR? I don't know. Maybe. Just to power their operation, but it's not a really high energy operation that is going on here. But it might become an interesting place to do things. But it's there's not a lot of people living there in this neighborhood. Salt Lake City's over here, so maybe there's some interesting thing over there. So Fort Calhoun, this is pretty interesting. So old pressurized water reactor in the decommissioning stages. I don't know how much of this is still left. It looks like there's a lot of it gone already, unfortunately. So if you want to restart Fort Calhoun, you really need to rebuild. I believe that you need to rebuild the steam turbine. But this is an excellent site for an IMSR. Over here you can see this is where the spent nuclear fuel is stored. Here's your switch yard. It's still there probably. The interesting bit is there's some industry right next to it. So over here you have Blair, Fort Calhoun, Iowa. I believe that this is either, I believe that they are doing something with food over here, grain or wheat or something like that. Maybe they could use heat from an IMSR, or for some other reason. Maybe they want to expand their industrial activities, and you can run a pipe from here to here that takes the heat over. You could probably transport it for several miles as long as you insulate it pretty well. So this is an interesting place, Fort Calhoun. I really hope that they can restart the light water reactor, but if they can't, then please start build a molten salt reactor there in 2025 or 2026. Yes, I'm ambitious, I know, but ambition is really what we're in short supply of today. Then we have La Crosse over here. La Crosse is interesting. Very small reactor next to a coal-fired reactor, coal-fired power plant, coal-fired reactor. Again, they have a switch yard. Here's the old nuclear power plant. It's a very small one, as you can see. Don't know whether Genoa Station 3 power station is going to remain operational, but I would think that this is also an interesting place. Although it's a pretty long way away from the nearest big city, and I'm talking about a big city, La Crosse. It's an interesting location, but I believe that Kewaunee over here is more interesting because it's not that far away from Green Bay. So over here, Kewaunee, right? Another pressurized water reactor, spent nuclear fuel, switch yard. As you can see, this is probably the generator building, still there. So not a lot of decommissioning work done on the building itself. But they might be able to build an IMSR over here. somewhere, um, plenty of opportunities. But the real interesting place, the thing, the location that I would pursue is Chicago, Zion. I once had Alyssa Hayes on the channel, talked to her about, the loss of Zion. So as you can see Zion over here, it's a pretty, it's a suburban area that is part of the greater Chicago metropolitan area. It's a metropole, There's a lot of demand here, just demand, right? Urban demand for electricity from people who use electricity to live. But there's loads of factories, assembly lines. There's some industry in Chicago, so there's some clear demand here. I would love to see Terrestrial Energy put up a couple of IMSRs here. Let's say 4 reactors or 6 reactors. That would bring it up to like 1.2 gigawatts almost. I think that would be an awesome place to start. Again, spent nuclear fuel is still on this site, but as you can see, if you really want to take apart a nuclear power plant, you can do it. There's nothing left of the old nuclear power plant here, as far as I can tell. It all has become dirt. And this is what they mean by brownfield, right? A brownfield is basically a place where there used to be a power station. It has been destroyed or taken apart, but a lot of the infrastructure is still there, especially the substation, the electric substation. That is the most interesting bit. So, yeah, having a couple of IMSRs in Zion, the Zion IMSR plant, that would be great. That would be something that I'm here for. And then there's a couple of other places that are interesting. So over here, there used to be an experimental fast reactor. Unfortunately, that has been remediated completely. Honestly, I don't think that you should do anything with this place anymore. Look at where it is. In the middle of the woods, right next to Zinneman Church and a place called Strickler and Hove Creek. On the, if we go up, I believe that this is Fayetteville. What does it say? It says Springdale. Here it is. Fayetteville, yes. I mean, maybe there's some demand there, but honestly, don't put it in the woods like this, right? I mean, there's just no point in putting a reactor in the woods. You have to run power cables. You have to cut trees. I mean, it's just pointless. Build your reactor closer to the city if you want to have one. Then over here, this is Energy Solutions. This is just part of their commercial operation, right? Wanted to show you that. This is near Memphis in Tennessee, and they have a lot of stuff going on in Tennessee. So over here, they have a processing facility, right? This might also be an interesting place where they could start to build an IMSR. But we also have to consider that this is right next to Oak Ridge National Laboratory, so it's pretty possible that this is not far from where they are building the Kairos Molten Salt Pebble Bat reactor at this moment, which is built somewhere around here. I don't know exactly where it is being built, but Oak Ridge is a large place. Then over here, this is also interesting. Resin, Erwin Resin Solutions, U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission. This is also Energy Solutions site. This might also be a interesting place where a molten salt reactor might turn up one day. I mean, these people, they could use the clean power of an IMSR, not just for the industrial activities that go on here, but also, for their community, powering the community. And then we have over here, I don't know. I don't know exactly where the Energy Solutions activities are over here. There should be some kind of a waste site, I believe, a waste site, yes. And then we have 3 Mile Island over here, which is now going to be restarted for Microsoft's sake. I would say, honestly, really, really thinking outside the box, this is a beautiful location, large enough for 2 reactors, large enough for a pressurized water reactor, and a couple of molten salt reactors. And over here, down here in the south, I believe this is a parking lot. You know, they're going to need a parking lot. Obviously, this is a parking lot as well. I would say build your IMSR here on 3 Mile Island. So build it at Zion and build it at 3 Mile Island. That would be a real victory for nuclear. Personally, that's what I would consider a real victory for nuclear. Honestly, I think that the molten salt reactor, bringing it to market has taken far too long for my taste. I had hoped that we would have been building our first molten salt reactor by now. Maybe it's going to happen next year or the year after that. Let's hope that the Trump administration will speed things up a little. And I'm really interested to see whether these molten salt reactors can deliver on their promise. Listen, I am tentative, right? I'm not going to say they are going to be a success. I maintain hope. I am somebody, I want to have something to look out for. And I'm not certain, but I am hopeful. So, please, if you find this video informative or instructive, or you learned anything from it, leave a like, make sure that you subscribe to the channel. And if you want to support me, please become a member of the channel, the YouTube member, or become a paying member at my Patreon page, which you can find in the description down below. Now, thank you all for watching, and may the strong force be with you. Bye-bye.